The United States is deeply confused about all of this. Where is the American century? It's supposed to last at least to 2041, if not 2141. And suddenly it's not there. So we are in a highly neurotic state right now, very agitated. And it's hard to find someone to sit down and say, calm down, it's okay. No one's taking away your good life. China's not invading you. China's not a threat. It is very successful, but you should enjoy that success, not bemoan that success. And so the added factor that we're facing right now is a reaction, a very deep and very unsettling reaction to this loss of leadership in the US. I have to say that most of the conflicts that we're experiencing now, whether it is in the Middle East or whether it is in Ukraine or the tensions in East Asia, have the US always as one of the causes of those conflicts. But most of the conflicts result actually in a deep way from the exaggerated US perception of its ability to dictate terms to others around the world. And this is what the United States did not understand, that it could not simply tell Russia, we do as we want in Ukraine or in other neighbors of Russia, because Russia does not want the US military bases on its borders any more than the United States would want Russian military bases in the Western Hemisphere. But the US could not understand the reciprocity of that, or the golden rule dimension, do not do to others what you would not have done to you. And so we did not understand that. And many of the other crises have this characteristic. What's dramatic is how ineffective, unfortunately, the United States is at facing this right now. This is why we have this tariff eruption, which is a complete sideshow, not a real event. It's a sideshow because raising tariffs has nothing to do with what the United States needs. It's not a solution for anything. And that's why they lasted 2 days. And the stock market collapsed and the bond market collapsed. And somebody came in to explain to the president, you better stop that. And it lasted vis-a-vis China for about 8 weeks because China said, we will match what you're doing. And then the United States backed down from that as well. So that's an example of what I would call a completely dysfunctional reaction to a reality, which is that the United States cannot dominate events. Donald Trump thought that the US market is so important, so dominant that no country could do anything but bend its knee and bend to the US will. And this is simply not correct. It's not a proper understanding. The US market for imports is only about 13% of world imports now. So you could close off the US market entirely and the rest of the world would figure out how to get along pretty well indeed. That was almost put to the test, but the US backed down quite quickly, and I don't think that it will come back. Just to say, and let me conclude here, some of the reactions are far worse. We are in what I call America's cultural revolution. That's not a good thing. Cultural revolutions do not go well. They set back China for 20 years, in effect, and the United States yesterday banished foreign students from Harvard University. That's not a joke. That's insane. It is self-destruction at a rate that is absolutely impossible to understand, other than in psychological terms. This is a backlash, a resentment, an aggression, an arrogance to destroy the core of your prosperity. And so one thing I know, Sunway University welcomes foreign students, and it's going to pay off big time. So let me just conclude with the following observations. Whichever direction one looks at the ecological crises or the still deprivation of very poor people in the world, and you ask the question systematically like an engineer, and I know this room is filled with leading engineers. I met several from Siemens, and Yi Chang is one of the great engineers of our age. If you look at this problem from an engineering point of view, what I love about engineers is they say, you give me the specs of what you want, I'll tell you how to build it. And you can do that with the problems that we face. We can remake the energy system to be a zero carbon energy system that works, that is efficient, that accommodates rapid economic development, that cleans the air, in fact, and has several other co-benefits alongside, and that is completely consistent with the kind of advanced digital economy that we are anticipating. And this is what I hope ASEAN adopts as an aim in the series of summits this year, because ASEAN should have a state-of-the-art 21st century green, clean energy system for the future. It can be done. If you look at any of the other sustainable development goals and ask the question in a very practical engineering way, could all children be in school? Of course, they could be in school. It's unbelievable that they're not, that actually hundreds of millions are not. That's a lack of organization and a financing strategy. That's not a technological determinant outcome by any means. Could everybody have access to health care? Well, with all of the advances of artificial intelligence, the ability to provide health care anywhere at quality has soared just in the last 2 or 3 years. And this is not simply a wish. This is actually happening in many places, because now you don't have to have the doctors nearby for most things. You can do remote imaging, you can do remote diagnostics, you can do a tremendous number of things that don't require the physical build out of infrastructure in remote areas that simply were not possible even 2 or 5, much less 10 years ago. And so we do not lack for practical solutions. What we lack is the organization and the integration of the know-how in our universities, in our research laboratories, in our think tanks, with the governments, so that this job can get done in an effective manner. China, by the way, to my view, is the most successful country in the world in integrating a high level of analytics and long-term government planning. And that's why China just put in its 50,000th kilometer of fast rail, for example. They built out infrastructure in a way that no other part of the world has done. It's why they're adding 300 gigawatts of solar power every year to capacity right now, and that will probably go up to 500 gigawatts in the next year or two. The capability of massive transformation is at hand. We need the organization, the planning, and the know-how. What finally will make this work is strong regional integration. The problems cannot be solved at the national level anywhere. That's even true for giants. For India, they need hydropower coming from the Himalayas, from Nepal and Bhutan. China needs an interconnection of its grid with next door Mongolia and with Southeast Asia, in fact. The United States absolutely needs Canadian hydropower and Mexican solar power in order to be able to decarbonize the energy system. And for the 10 ASEAN countries, of course, not one reaches a scale that by itself could make this kind of transformation. So this is why the ASEAN summit is so important, why Malaysia's presidency is so important, because regional groupings are no longer nice things to do, pleasant meetings to have with your neighbors. They are essential for success. We need governance at a regional scale. And of course, the scale that we need in East Asia is at least at the level of the economic partnership of RCEP, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership that brings together China, Japan, Korea, ASEAN, Australia, and New Zealand. I envision that all 15 will be in an integrated energy system, even physical connectivity of Australia with Indonesia by submarine cable and on to the rest of ASEAN. By the way, Siemens, which is well represented here, had the idea for Europe of what used to be called Desertec, which is to bring together a whole European grid with North Africa and the Middle East. Europe lost the way. Siemens pointed the way, but the politicians didn't follow. But that's the kind of logic that we need for regional solutions. China will play a huge, important, and positive role for this region. And by the way, the United States is not lost forever. We just need to get through our cultural revolution.